Well, hey there, Darren Garman here, and I am one of the foremost experts in multifamily in the U.S., and I'm going to go over with you how I draft multifamily letters of intent to purchase. I'm going to show you how I do this. I'm going to show you how I do this quickly and how I do this mistake-free. I think you'll get a lot of lessons out of how I do it that I think can be used to help you in the purchase of that first or that next multi-family apartment community. And by the way, what I'm going to be sharing with you works for me whether we're purchasing 4 units or 400 units. The size in this case does not matter, okay? And so I'm coming to you from a frame of having sold and transacted more apartment communities in the state of Iowa than anyone else, over $1 billion easily. I've been doing this well over 30 years, specializing and focusing in multifamily, and I own over 1,200 units as well. So the information I'm going to be sharing with you is from what I do with a history like this when it comes to purchasing multifamily properties that I want to own. And before I go into detail on how I do this, I do need to, of course, have the short disclaimer here that I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not practicing law here. And I urge you to contact a lawyer if and when the time comes for you to get serious about buying that multifamily property. The information I'm going to be sharing with you here is not warranted or guaranteed, okay? I'm simply showing you what I do with someone that owns well over 1,200 units, that's transacted well over $1 billion of apartment communities over the last 30 years does when he goes ahead and wants to purchase an apartment community. What does he do? I'm going to show you exactly that. Now, this is for you if you have finally found that multifamily property you want to buy and you want to get it under contract. That's how I look at it. I'm out there looking for apartment communities. We're continuing to look at adding to our portfolio, and I finally found that one. I found that apartment community that I want to own. It's passed all my litmus tests. I finally want to own it. Now I want to get that under contract. And I start with a letter of intent. That's the first place I start. So you notice I didn't say I start with an offer. You notice I didn't say I start with a purchase agreement. And I should tell you why I don't do that here in just a second. I start with a letter of intent. And here's why I do. Because the letter of intent outlines the big how it will be purchased or sold picture. Okay, so the letter of intent outlines the big items that me and the seller should be agreeing upon. And I'll go over those with you here in just a second. In a simple one-page document, very short, I outline the big picture. Okay? Outline the big picture on how I plan on purchasing it and how the seller plans on selling that multifamily property to me. So that's number one. Number two, I use this letter of intent format because frankly, it saves time. It saves time of a bunch of back and forth and regarding minutia and details that really all we want to do at this point is get an understanding of how he or she's going to sell and how I'm going to purchase. Okay. And it saves money. I'm not contacting a lawyer yet. I'm not contacting an accountant yet. I'm not contacting all of my management teams. I'm not doing any of that stuff yet. I will. But see, I can go ahead and use this letter of intent to basically compound time. That's how I look at it. Okay, this letter of intent I'm going to show you does exactly that. And then once this letter of intent is agreed upon between the seller and myself, we go to contract. Okay, so let's jump into it now. Let's now have you discover how I draft my own multifamily letter of intent. Let me show you exactly what I do. All right, what you see in front of you here is basically my letter of intent. This is the letter of intent that I use whether I'm purchasing, it doesn't matter, 4 units, 400 units, this is the format that I use. Notice a couple things about how I do things here. First of all, does this look super sophisticated to you? No, it's a simple one-page document. That's it. Do I have a bunch of, heavy-duty language and format and No, this is pretty easy. And like I mentioned before, what I try to do is hit those major bullet points, the major items of the deal anyway. Okay, that's what I like to do, and this is the format that I use. So let's go over this together. First thing I have is the date. Okay, in this letter of intent, I've got April 7th. And I'm sending it via email. So however I decide to send it, and most letters of intent I send over email, I go ahead and I make a note here on how it's sent. Regarding, and this is the apartment community that I go ahead and name here. In this case, it's called the Great Apartments in Des Moines, Iowa. And what I do sometimes here is if there's no apartment name, I'll just put something here that might say something like 24 units, 123 Main Street, Des Moines, Iowa. I'll put an address there. Okay, so I'll either put the name of the apartment community here, or I'll put the address of the apartment community here. Okay, and notice what I say after I've done that. I'm interested in acquiring the above referenced property. Please let this serve as my non-binding letter of intent to purchase the property under the following terms and conditions. Okay? Pretty simple. 2 sentences, pretty simple. Hey, I'm interested in acquiring your property, and let this serve as a non-binding letter of intent. And why I go non-binding is because I still don't know 100% of the information I need to know about this property yet, do I? Okay? Most of the time I don't. So most of the time I haven't inspected all the units yet. Most of the time I haven't dug through the last 2 or 3 years of financials yet. I'm not finished with my due diligence yet. So that's why when I do it, I make my letters of intent non-binding. Okay? Of course, you can choose to do it however you want, but I use a non-binding letter of intent. Okay? So here's the outlines of the deal. Purchase price. In this case, I'm offering $20 million. Due diligence contingency. The purchaser shall have a period of 30 days from the execution of a contract of sale to complete its due diligence. All I'm doing here in one sentence is I'm saying, hey, here's how long I need to do my due diligence. Okay? Some properties it might be 60 days. Some properties 45 days. Okay? It doesn't really matter. What matters is I have enough time in here that I give myself to do the due diligence. So, purchase price $20 million. Due diligence contingency, purchaser shall have 30 days from the execution of a contract of sale to complete his due diligence. Okay, the next thing I mentioned is my initial earnest money deposit. Okay, or some call it money that is paid up front at execution. Okay, my term for it is earnest money. So in this case, I'm going to be putting up $250,000 at the mutual execution of a purchase and sale agreement, which is to be originated by the buyer. Who's the buyer? Me. So here's why I have this sentence in here. I've got how much money I'm going to be putting up as earnest money at the execution of a purchase and sale agreement. This isn't at the execution of a letter of intent. So another reason I do this is I'm not putting any money up front as of yet. I don't have to wire money. I don't have to issue a cashier's check. I'm just drafting a letter of intent. Now, if we come to terms with a purchase and sale agreement, sure, then I'm going to go ahead and deposit $250,000 with the seller. But that purchase agreement is going to be originated by me. In other words, I'm going to draft it. We have to agree upon that purchase and sale agreement. And when we do, I'm going to deposit $250,000. But I'm not depositing anything right now. Why? Because this is a letter of intent. It's not a purchase and sale agreement. Okay? The next sentence, deposit increase. I'm going to increase the deposit another $250,000 for a total of $500,000 at the end of the due diligence contingency period, and the total is going to be deemed non-refundable after the end of the due diligence contingency. So I put this in here because if I get a property and I've done my due diligence and I think I'm going to be purchasing it, I'm going to go ahead and add a deposit to the initial deposit I've already made, and I'm going to make it non-refundable. Now, why would I do that? Because A, if I do this, I know that we're going to be closing on this deal. B, the seller can now work with me in straight confidence that the deal is going to close. This is very effective for me when there may be other parties that might be competing to buy the property, okay? Sometimes you may be competing with others to buy the property. So I have this in here to make my letter of intent a little more competitive. Now, let's say I approached a property that there was nobody competing. I wouldn't even have this in here. But I've got it in here now in the event that we are going to be competing with others to buy the property. Again, now this is just me. I would take this out if we're not competing with anybody. Okay? All right, so what have we learned so far? I'm going to pay $20 million for the property. I got 30 days to do my due diligence. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and put down, let me highlight that. I'm going to put down $250,000 once we get a purchase and sale agreement done. Not right now. Once we get the purchase and sale agreement done, and I'm going to add another $250 if at the end of the due diligence period, I want to move ahead with the purchase. Now, of course, if I'm not going to go ahead with the purchase, I go through that due diligence period and I'm like, you know what? I don't think I want to buy this thing. Then, of course, this is a moot point. I would not be moving forward. Okay? My next topic, financing. I have 30 days to obtain financing acceptable to me. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Closing. The closing date shall be held no later than July 1, 2023 or sooner by mutual agreement. Here's where you put the date of your closing on when you want to close. Pretty easy. Again, one simple sentence. And then this letter of intent is good through, in this case, April 20th, 2023. So I've got, see my headings here, purchase price, due diligence contingency, initial deposit, deposit increase, which is optional. We talked about that. Financing contingency, closing, and time. That's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items in my letter of intent that I'm using to purchase a $20 million property. Do you see how easy I make this for me when I'm moving forward on a property? Okay, and then the last paragraph, if the information provided above meets your approval, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, please indicate by signing one copy of this letter and returning it to my office. Should you have any questions, feel free to contact me. There's my name and my signature, and then a place for the seller to sign. Again, a simple Word document is all I use with 7, sometimes just 6 main points to be used in negotiating this letter of intent. Do you see how easy this is? Do you see how much time I save doing this? And do you see how effective this is in terms of how I work on getting properties under contract? I want to thank you for joining me on this quick video on how I quickly draft a letter of intent to purchase an apartment property, a multifamily property where there's 400 or 400 units, how I do this quickly, how I do this mistake-free. A great place for more resources regarding this is my website, and the information is here to get more multifamily information, including other multifamily resources that can help you in a big, big way, not only for you to purchase your next multifamily property, but to also invest in it wisely. All right, thank you for taking the time to watch my video. Have a great day.